Once upon a time in a faraway land, there lived a young girl named Talia. Talia was a kind and gentle soul who had a loving family and friends. However, Talia had one problem that she couldn't solve. She was very timid and scared of almost everything, which often made her feel helpless. One day, Talia was walking through the forest near her home when she came across a peculiar wooden sign. The sign had strange symbols and characters carved into it, and an old, weathered inscription read, "Beware, all who enter here," of course. This only made Talia more nervous and she wanted to run away, but something kept her rooted to the spot. As she stood there frozen with fear, a gruff voice startled her. "Who goes there?" A tall, imposing figure stepped out from behind the trees. His face was obscured by a hooded cloak, and his eyes glowed an eerie green in the dim light. Talia tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her whole body trembled as she struggled to break free from the paralyzing grip of fear. But the more she struggled, the deeper the fear grew within her, making it impossible for her to escape. The hooded man chuckled, enjoying her terror. "Lost, little one?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You shouldn't be here." Talia finally found her voice, but it was shaky and weak. I didn't mean to come in here," she stammered. I got lost." The man's eyes narrowed. "This is no place for the likes of you," he said dismissively. "Leave now before it's too late." With that, he turned and disappeared back into the trees. Overwhelmed with relief, Talia didn't wait a second time. She turned and ran, stumbling over tree roots and fallen branches in her haste to get away. She didn't stop running until she reached the safety of her home, collapsing on her front doorstep, gasping for breath. As she slowly regained her composure, Talia realized that she couldn't let what had happened to her scare her away forever. She knew she had to return to the forest and confront her fears head-on. So with a deep breath, she wiped the sweat from her brow and started back towards the forest. When she returned, the trees seemed to loom over her like menacing giants, and the underbrush rustled with unseen creatures. But Talia pressed on, her determination growing with each step. As she walked, she began to notice strange things happening around her. Leaves and branches twisted into grotesque shapes, gnarled and contorted as if in pain. The flowers she passed by were wilted and decaying, their petals falling off and their stems turning black and brittle. The air itself seemed heavy and oppressive, making it difficult to breathe. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind her. Talia whirled around, her heart pounding. But when she saw that it was only a squirrel scampering up a tree, she felt a surge of self-reproach. How could she be so jumpy? It was just a little squirrel. With a sigh, she shook her head and continued on her way, determined not to let her fears get the best of her. As she ventured deeper into the forest, the strangeness only intensified. The trees closed in around her, forming a thick canopy overhead that blocked out the sun. The path beneath her feet became uneven and treacherous, with sharp rocks and deep holes lurking at every turn. And then she heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from the very depths of the forest. Her blood ran cold and her legs began to tremble, threatening to give way beneath her. Just as she was about to break down and succumb to her fear, she remembered the words of the mysterious hooded man. This place was feeding off her fear, growing stronger with every terrified thought that crossed her mind. She realized that the only way to escape was to confront her fears head-on and not give in to them. Taking a deep breath, Talia forced herself to stand tall, her chin lifted in defiance. As she did, she noticed a faint glimmer of light in the distance. With renewed determination, she surged forward, pushing aside the doubts and fears that had been holding her back. With each step, the growling grew louder, more insistent. Then suddenly, it erupted into a deafening roar. Talia stumbled, bracing herself against a nearby tree. When she looked up, she gasped in surprise. Standing before her was a magnificent white lion, its fur as bright as snow, and its eyes shining with an otherworldly light. The lion took a step towards her, and Talia froze, expecting the worst. But instead of attacking, the lion lowered its head and let out a soft, almost musical purr. As Talia watched in amazement, the trees around her began to straighten, their branches reaching up towards the sky. The wilted flowers perked up, their petals unfurling, and their colors returning. The air grew lighter and sweeter, and Talia felt a sense of calm and peace she had never experienced before. The lion let out another soft purr and nudged Talia gently with its head. As she reached out to stroke its fur, she felt a surge of warmth and happiness spread through her. In that moment, she understood that the lion was the guardian of the forest, and it had been protecting her from the darkness that had been growing within the trees. But why was that darkness there in the first place? Talia wondered. As she looked around at the transformed forest, she realized that it wasn't just the trees that had been affected by the darkness, but also the animals. The birds sang with joyous abandon, their songs echoing through the trees. Squirrels chattered and played in the branches, and butterflies fluttered around her, their wings painted with the most brilliant colors. Talia had never seen the forest so alive and vibrant, and she couldn't help but smile. Suddenly, the lion let out a loud roar, and Talia's smile faded. What was wrong? The lion paced back and forth, its eyes fixed on something behind her. With a start, Talia turned around and gasped. Behind her, the hooded man was standing there, his eyes glowing with an evil light. "So you found the guardian, little one," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "But even he cannot save you from yourself." As he spoke, the trees behind him began to twist and writhe, their branches reaching out like grasping claws. The flowers wilted once again, and the animals fled in terror. Talia felt her heart sink. Was the darkness returning? But then she remembered what she had learned. Fear only made the darkness grow stronger. If she could stay calm, if she could control her emotions, then maybe she could still prevail. Taking a deep breath, Talia stood her ground. "Who are you?" she demanded. The man hesitated, surprised by her sudden confidence. "I am the embodiment of your fears," he replied, his voice losing some of its arrogance. "And while you remain afraid, I will always be stronger than you." Talia knew he was right, but she refused to let that defeat her. She looked at the frightened animals around her, the wilting flowers and the twisting trees. She could see that the forest and all its inhabitants were suffering because of her fear, and she knew she had to do something to stop it. "Then I will conquer my fears," she declared. "I will not let you hurt this forest or its people anymore." As soon as she finished speaking, the trees straightened, their branches reaching up to the sky. The flowers blossomed and the animals returned, chirping, singing and chattering. The forest was alive again, and Talia felt a surge of hope. The man recoiled as if burned. "How can you be so calm? You should be terrified," he shouted. But Talia wasn't. She was filled with determination and resolve. She would not let her fears control her. Talia took a step towards the man, and he took a step back. "Get away from me," he hissed. But Talia kept coming, her eyes blazing with newfound confidence. The man stumbled backward, his form flickering as if he were made of smoke and shadows. "Don't come any closer," he warned. "If you take another step towards me, I will destroy this forest." Talia hesitated, torn between her desire to stop the man and her love for the forest. But she knew that if she didn't act now, the darkness would consume everything. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. The man screamed in rage and vanished into thin air. With the man gone, the forest was finally free from the darkness that had been plaguing it. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, the flowers bloomed in a riot of colors, and the animals frolicked and played. Talia looked around at the transformed forest and smiled. She had saved the forest and its inhabitants from the darkness, and she had done it by conquering her own fears. From that day on, Talia was a changed person. She was still kind and gentle, but she was no longer afraid of everything. She had learned that fear only made things worse, and that true strength came from facing her fears head on. And whenever she felt a twinge of fear, she remembered the words of the wise old lion. Stay calm, little one. Fear only makes the darkness grow stronger. With those words as her mantra, Talia lived the rest of her life bravely and with purpose, always ready to face whatever challenges came her way.